What up, YouTube? Here with a post-fight video of the Alberto Lopez versus Angelo Leo fight. Now, before I give you the summary of what happened in the fight, I'm going to tell y'all the results first. Angelo Leo became the new IBF featherweight champion after knocking out Alberto Lopez in the 10th round to become the new IBF featherweight champion in a devastating, emphatic fashion. In my opinion, thus far for this year, this is the top candidate for knockout of the year. If there's no other knockouts that happens in a major contest for the remainder of the year, then this for sure is going to go down as the knockout of the year for this year. And shout out to Angelo Leo. He, mind y'all, after taking a 3-year layoff, he came back into action this year, and I believe this is his 3rd fight this year, and he's done a good, consistent job at staying busy after that long 3-year layoff. And he only lost once in his professional career, and that was against Stephen Fulton for the WBO Super Bantamweight title when he was the champion at Super Bantamweight. That's his only professional defeat. And then he fought Nicholas Polanco after that, and then he disappeared for 3 years, did Angelo Leo. And before fighting Nicholas Polanco, he also fought Aaron Alameda, and he won that fight via majority decision, and that was immediately after his fight versus Stephen Fulton. And then after he took those 3 years off, he came back into action this year, and he moved up from Super Bantamweight to Featherweight. And in his first fight back, it was for the vacant WBA interim featherweight title versus Mike Polania, where he was able to knock out Polania in the 3rd round to win the WBA interim featherweight title. And then in his last bout, before fighting Lopez, he defeated Eduardo Baez via decision to retain that interim WBA featherweight title. Now, I know that Alberto Lopez wasn't the WBA featherweight champion, which was the title Angelo Leo was the mandatory challenger for, because before this fight, and I believe he still is the interim WBA featherweight champion, if I'm not mistaken, that title is currently held by Nick Ball. But I guess that fight was more difficult to make according to the promotional side of things. And this fight with Leo and Lopez was easier to make because this was a all in-house top-ranked promotion bout. And it didn't disappoint at all, because this fight between the two warriors was a fan-friendly style affair that not only enthusiastic hardcore boxing fans look forward to, but the public tends to favor these type of style fights. And that's exactly what we saw out of these two fighters that duked it out for the IBF featherweight title. And Leo couldn't have defeated a better fighter to become the new IBF featherweight champion. He did that versus the best in the division. Mind y'all, Alberto Lopez had a streak prior to this defeat like no other. He won 13 straight, and 8 of those 13 straight wins by knockout. A streak like that at a championship level is almost unheard of. And Angelo Leo was able to knock out Alberto Lopez the way he did, and this being considered thus far the best knockout for the calendar of this year is a statement maker for sure. And Angelo Leo, how he approached this fight was very ballsy. He showed no fear, and he didn't show any regards and respect for the power and ability and the reputation that Luis Alberto Lopez has earned over the years. Luis Alberto Lopez is a devastating puncher as well with a lot of power, but Angelo Leo dove into the fire without no hesitation, and this is a triumphant comeback story for Angelo Leo, for him taking 3 years off, moving up from super bantamweight. He fought at an elite level as super bantamweight, and then now he moved up to featherweight, and now he defeated the best at featherweight to now cement his status as not only champion, but now this gotta make him the best in the division, because he defeated the best in the division. And now he's at, well, he was already at an elite level, because when he came back, he won 2 in a row and became interim WBA champion in his first fight at featherweight and his first fight back after that 3-year layoff. And then he defeats Eduardo Baez, who is a decent opponent, and then now he's able to pull this big win off of Alberto Lopez and take the title off of Alberto Lopez the way he did. Is very impressive. And I had this fight scored prior to the stoppage 5-4 in favor of Angelo Leo. This was a very close competitive bout, a very fierce bout. Both fighters going blow for blow, toe to toe, exchanging their best with one another. And Luis Alberto Lopez showed more patience and better technicality and better accuracy and punch placement, and that technical skills wasn't enough to back Angelo Leo off of him. And Luis Alberto Lopez was landing some significant blows, but Angelo Leo's fierceness and his never give up attitude and his come forward style, his relentlessness wouldn't let up off of Luis Alberto Lopez, and his determination was like no other. And Angelo Leo, he kept bringing the pressure, the volume, and the work rate was a lot to keep up for Luis Alberto Lopez, and it tired Luis Alberto Lopez, and Luis Alberto Lopez couldn't catch a break. He couldn't get comfortable versus Angelo Leo. Angelo Leo kept on staying in the pocket, kept on making the fight be at a close distance. He kept pushing Luis Alberto Lopez back and cutting off the ring versus Lopez, forcing Lopez against the corner and forcing Lopez to fight on off his back foot and with his back against the ropes, and forcing Luis Alberto Lopez to counter. Now, Lopez being a durable fighter, this was a battle of nutrition, and Luis Alberto Lopez, he was able to match the work rate and the constant attack and the consistent flow of Angelo Leo. But whenever Luis Alberto Lopez tended to catch Leo with significant shots, especially that uppercut that was sneaking through the guard of Angelo Leo, who would march forward and press Lopez with his head down. That's what made him such an easy target for Lopez's uppercut to land so accurately against him throughout the course of the fight. And Angelo Leo, on the other hand, he has a very durable chin. And thank goodness for Leo, because of his iron chin, he was able to absorb those devastating power shots from Luis Alberto Lopez, and Lopez couldn't establish the jab to create that necessary distance for him to work with a rangy space, for him to create that separate distance for him to do significant work against Leo. And Luis Alberto Lopez doesn't have the reputation of having the best jab in the game. He tends to make a technical mistake when it comes to throwing his jab. He tends to get very tall whenever he throws that jab, and that leaves his chin open for his opponent to catch him with the counter shot. And that's exactly how that knockout happened. Luis Alberto Lopez leaped up a little too high when throwing that jab, and it was at the center of the ring. And it looked as if Luis Alberto Lopez was about to gain that momentum because he was landing the significant blows. And throughout the course of the fight, Luis Alberto Lopez was landing the better, more effective combinations because he was able to put punches better. He's able to put his punches together better than Angelo Leo. That's what I meant to say by saying that Lopez is the more skillful fighter. Technically, Angelo Leo was more head-on, charge forward, and he wasn't more technically efficient than Luis Alberto Lopez was. He was more messy with it. Angelo Leo was more dangerous and letting it more all on the line than Luis Alberto Lopez was. Lopez was finding flaws and finding moments for him to land his significant attacks whenever Angelo Leo would take a break, which was rare throughout the entirety of the fight. And Luis Alberto Lopez would have to create those moments by catching Angelo Leo with powerful shots to back him off of him. And it looked as if things were turning around for Luis Alberto Lopez because the momentum from the looks of it was starting to shift in the favor of Lopez. And then Lopez landed like a 2-3 punch combo on Leo, and then that's what got him to reset and throw that jab out there. And he got tall, as he usually does whenever he throws that jab, and Angelo Leo was able to time that and telegraph that and throw a left hook to counter over on top of the low guard and the unprotected chin of Lopez, because Lopez exposed his chin out there and his jaw, his whole upper part of his face, with his guard still being up. But once he gets tall and he comes out of his shell while throwing that jab, that's what left him open to that hook, that left hook of Angelo Leo. And that left hook is a legendary punch. It is my favorite punch of all time. And Angelo Leo landed the picture-perfect, most perfect left hook that a boxing fan or a boxer will want to land against his opponent. And as soon as that punch landed, everyone that was tuned into the fight could tell that it was a devastating shot. It was a significant blow that Leo landed on Lopez, and the whiplash from that shot, the sweat that popped out of Lopez from that left hook. And when we saw, for those that tapped into the fight, when we saw Lopez drop from that left hook, his head, the way his head hit the canvas and the way how he reacted to that shot, you could tell it was going to be a struggle. And for long-time avid boxing fans that's been tapping into the sport of boxing for a long time could tell that Lopez was out on his back, and it was highly unlikely for Lopez to be able to answer the referee's count. And that's what we saw. And if you're a baseball fan, I'm going to use this baseball analogy. Leo hit the sweet spot on Lopez. And this fight prior to the stoppage as I said, was very close and competitive. Even though I had Leo winning by a round, if this fight was to go to distance, I'm quite sure fans would have liked to see a rematch because of how active this fight was and how back and forth this fight was. And even after how this fight ended out, I still wouldn't mind seeing a rematch between Leo and Lopez because of how fierce and competitive this fight was. And as I said, usually knockouts like this call for no rematches. And that's because whenever a knockout like this happens, it's because it wasn't competitive. The fight wasn't competitive, but this fight was. Hence why I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch between Angelo Leo and Luis Alberto Lopez. And speaking on the side of Luis Alberto Lopez, as I said, without a shadow of a doubt, Luis Alberto Lopez was the best featherweight in the division and still is one of the best in the division right now. As I said, the streak that he had going on prior to this fight was like no other. 13 wins in a row, that's almost unheard of. Unless, well, I'm not talking about undefeated professional fighters, but a guy that fights at a high level and at the current stages with today's boxing, that status is impressive. And the featherweight division's got a good, healthy scene right now. We had Nick Ball, of course, who pulled off that upset victory against Raymond Ford to become the WBA featherweight champion. He won that fight via split decision. That was a close competitive bout as well. And then he had a draw versus Ray Vargas, who's been a staple household name and is the current WBC featherweight champion. There's the WBO featherweight champion as well, Rafael Espinoza, and then there's the former WBO featherweight champion as well, Robesi Ramirez. There's also Bruce Carrington as well, a unbeaten prospect. There is Ruben Villa, and there is Otame Kovatov, Raymond Ford, and Mauricio Lara, Josh Warrington, Mark Mixayo, Brendan Figueroa. And these names are notable names that fight at an elite level amongst the top of the featherweights. And any of these names are capable of putting on thrilling bouts for either four of the featherweight titles, because currently there is no unified featherweight champions in the division right now. And as far as Angelo Leo goes, if there isn't an immediate rematch for Luis Alberto Lopez, he could go for a title unification bout versus the WBO featherweight champion, Rafael Espinoza. Robesi Ramirez would be a good challenge for him as well. There's Bruce Carrington as well, although I'm not quite sure if Carrington is ready at the stage that he's currently at right now for a title shot, because he is a prospect on the come up. And then there is also Otame Komatov, who had a close fight versus Raymond Ford. Ford was able to stop him in the later rounds for the WBA featherweight title, but he signed to Matchroom and the Zone. He left Top Rank, so I don't know how likely that fight will be. And the WBO and the WBC titles can be intermingled, because that fight with Ray Vargas and Nick Ball was aired on the Zone, and we're used to seeing Ray Vargas and his fights being aired on PBC. And Ray Vargas and his fight versus Nick Ball was aired on the Zone. And I wouldn't mind seeing a rematch between Vargas and Ball, because that fight ended in a draw. And that would be for a title unification for the WBC and WBA featherweight titles. And then that would be a exclusive DAZN fight, as it would be for the IBF and WBO featherweight title. That would be a all in-house top-ranked ESPN fight between Angelo Leo and Rafael Espinoza if they were to meet. And then there is the interim WBC featherweight champion Brandon Figueroa, who was a household name when he was a champion at super bantamweight. And then there's Mark Mixayo as well. They're PBC exclusive fighters, and I'm telling y'all how the featherweight division is looking right now. And then there's also, of course, English fighters that fight overseas. I know Mauricio Lara isn't a English fighter. He's a Mexican fighter, but he's had many bouts in England, and him and Josh Warrington had a long time rivalry. And I wouldn't mind seeing a trilogy bout between the two fighters because of how their second fight ended in a no contest because of an accidental headbutt. And those names are also amongst the top of the division, as I have mentioned before. And if Lara or Warrington can cross over from England to America to challenge Angelo Leo, well, that's more unlikely, even though Top Rank has worked with DAZN and Matchroom before. For example, that fight with Terrence Crawford and Israel Madrimov, Top Rank was involved with that event, and they worked with Matchroom and Raya Season and DAZN. So it's not unlikely, it's not impossible for those mega fights to happen in the featherweight division. And if PBC, who doesn't do cross promotional bouts as often as other promotions, can make Brandon Figueroa or Mark Mixayo fight a fighter that isn't promoted by PBC, such as the current WBC featherweight champion Ray Vargas. I don't know what his promotional contract is looking like. If Ray Vargas isn't under contract with PBC anymore, and if he moved over to Matchroom, then if PBC can put the, I don't want to call it ego, but if PBC does the unlikely and works with another promotion to look out for the best interests of their fighters and their career, because Brandon Figueroa has been the interim WBC featherweight champion for a while now, and that fight would be a good fight for the sport of boxing. That fight would be a good look between Vargas and Figueroa. And then there's also opportunities as well with Nick Ball, the WBA featherweight champion. And I thought I'll give y'all my thoughts about how the featherweight division is looking right now and possible bouts in the future amongst the top of the featherweights. But I just want to say congratulations to Angelo Leo for this huge win. And what a comeback, and what a way for Angelo Leo to become a champion in the featherweight division after that long 3-year layoff, and him coming back from a 3-year layoff and winning the way he did in his hometown of Albuquerque, New Mexico, versus the best featherweight champion in the division. The way he did, impressive. What a win. And that's all I got to say as far as my post-fight thoughts go. Subscribe to this channel if y'all want, and hit the bell notification if y'all want to subscribe to this channel. That way y'all can stay up to date with the content that I upload on this channel. And hit the like button, the share button if y'all want. Click the links in the description if y'all like. And if y'all want to show y'all support for this channel, anything will be appreciated. And with that being said, I'm out, y'all. Be good and peace.